Lindbergh Schools community and everyone else interested in understanding how many public schools influence elections all over the nation. Many of our public school systems have not only lost their ethical stance of neutrality during elections, but also leveraged their access to data, employee-run PTGs, and influence within the community to prevent fair consideration of all candidates. This is done through defamation, leaking of information, and attempts to damage candidate reputations. In this video, we will share our own experience with Lindbergh Schools, the conduct of the board, administration, and employees to show why independents not anointed by the school district have little chance of serving unless the community can truly see what is happening. We are being lied to, and it is time to shine a light on what is really happening so that we can fix our school system and go back to serving all of the community. Thank you, and enjoy the episode. Hello, and welcome back to our new chapter today in our mini-series. In this chapter, we will go over how our school district, in our opinion, has lost its neutral stance. In order to do that, we're going to go over a few things that we experienced. We're going to share our experience with the community, and we'll leave it for the community to make judgment on whether they think this is a fair and secure election, or if there's interference that's being run. So when we say that the school district has lost its neutral stance, what we're really talking about is a sort of underlying activity of its employees to help the candidates of their choice. In some cases, sharing of data.
Right.
In some cases, we've seen board members actively get involved and show favoritism towards their candidates and encouraging the community to choose. And there's a problem with that as well, because board members, being board members, are supposed to be representative of the school.
That's right.
And so I'd like to go over a few things. The first one is data sharing, and I want to give an example of how that recently happened in these last elections. It was very interesting, but the committee for Prop R received data from the district, which was proprietary, unique, and also held personal information.
So that's voters' data, right?
Well, it was district data that was cross-referenced with voter data to identify individuals who were not registered to vote. Something that, as a candidate, I cannot get, because I cannot ask for the list of families from the school district. They're protected under PPRA, right? Or FERPA.
FERPA, yeah.
And so I can't get that data, and so, but the school district can get that data, and they decided to pull the public data of all registered voters, cross-reference that with their enrolled families.
Enrollment, I see.
And find all the parents who were, and students who were eligible to vote, but not registered yet. And they compiled that list and they distributed that to their Prop R committee, which we'll get to the story of that. And that gives a whole new range of individuals that can be reached out to and encouraged to register vote in order to get the Prop R.
Or the families that are in the district and also enrolled in the district, but also voters might have bigger push to vote for Prop R, which was what district wanted, right?
Well, maybe, but here we're talking about people who are not registered to vote.
I understand.
So this data is a treasure trove because it's untapped voters. And so it was shared out with the committee, the Prop R committee, and the Prop R committee was able to use that to go canvassing and try to recruit individuals to support Prop R. Well, the problem that we ran into is that information, which is 30%, one-third actually, of Lindbergh Schools families were not registered to vote.
Right.
So that was discovered, and it was shared with the committee members, and the list was shared with the committee members. But many of those same committee members were also part of the committees of my opponents.
Right.
And so we were identifying data being shared with my opponents. And before that could actually happen, I called it out, and I reached out to the school district, and I shared my concern about this, and compromising our fair and secure election.
Right.
And the response I got was, we can't stop them from sharing the data. And so
you cannot stop the Prop R committee members to also go and support candidates, Board of Education members, candidates, to support using the data they got somewhere else, for example, Prop R committee. Correct?
That's right. So they can, and as far as we've heard, that happen, where the same canvassers that were encouraging to support the Prop R were also at the same time, and at least in some cases, supporting my opponents.
Well, I have to say that while I was canvassing this last election season, I found many houses that the homeowners were not home, and these literatures were left together, our opponents' literatures plus Prop R together. So it was obvious that one person came to canvass for both causes in the same time.
Yes. Just from how it looks to the community, I at least have to ask,
Right.
Does this seem fair?
Right.
Does this seem like it's giving the democratic process a real opportunity, or is it giving an unfair advantage that's already stacked,
Right.
sort of against independence?
Right.
Is it giving others an opportunity to maybe serve? So that's an example of data. The other part of the loss of neutrality, and I think we've seen this for a long time now, is how many of the employees at Lindbergh Schools, they go around with, and we've seen a few instances of this, and we have some images that we'll share hopefully, but they wear their name tags.
Right, with the Lindbergh Schools logo on it.
Yeah, exactly. So it's obvious that it's an employee badge, and they go either on their Facebook profiles or they canvass as that, and they say, well, this is the position of teachers.
Correct.
Right? They'll say the teachers support these candidates. And we've heard this many times with our own ears,
Right.
During polling day.
Correct.
And other opportunities during forums.
And it was even on our opponent's literatures, Lindbergh Teachers Union support or endorsed these candidates.
Right. And so they're making a statement that really is getting very close to the school district position and representation of saying, here's the candidates that are preferable to the school.
I even remember the first time we ran, we were receiving reports of the teachers wearing the school t-shirts, targeting the houses that already had our yard signs, and persuading these voters, saying, your candidates do not support teachers, we're the teachers, you should support our teachers endorsed candidates, right?
Well, yeah, it was actually very painful, because I got those same reports, and the teachers would canvass those houses, they would target those houses, and they would say, well, why are you supporting David? The teachers don't support David.
Right.
We support this and this. And that was patently untrue, because we have many friends and teachers in the district who do support us. And I think it's important for the community to understand, I don't know what the current percentage is of teachers who belong to the NEA, but when it comes to political decisions, the NEA doesn't necessarily speak for all teachers. Really, the union speaks for teachers in terms of salary and negotiations, and that's the representation. The other thing is a lot of teachers are registered through the MSTA. Not everyone is part of the union.
NEA union.
The NEA union. And it was the MNEA, the Missouri NEA chapter, which actually was donating and putting funds. And they were the super PAC with hundreds of thousands of dollars behind them supporting their preferred candidates. And I found it ironic that those same union bosses went after me saying he's got a super PAC with dark money behind when, let's put it this way, the MNEA has a lot of money. And when it comes to a PAC in education, they are the largest by far.
Of course.
And probably the most influential, too.
And this past April election, MNEA had a celebration post on their Facebook page stating that they won most of the state's seats, for the Board of Education election. And that shows that MNEA is running the show as far as Board of Education election in our state.
Well, I agree with that. The script and the recipe for winning April elections has been proven out. It's a formula well known, and it's part of the difficulty for a grassroots candidate. And it doesn't matter who it is. No one in our county really won, including in St. Charles. And I think that shows that the unions have figured out the recipe. And it's not just the unions, but it's the districts behind that as well, in my opinion, which are also influencing this.
I also remember when we just talked about the general unions and also teachers union, somehow the teachers union is also have a very close connection with PTG in different school buildings, and we had some interesting correspondence with high school PTG this past election, right?
Yes, that's right. So it was interesting. Very close to, I would say, the end of the election cycle. I think it was around March 11th. We had a discussion with, we got an email, a Facebook message that came in from Emily Cook, the head of the high school PTG, who expressed interest in having a forum 1 week before the election. And, you know, we had a lot of things going down. At that point, we were kind of, we had last minute preparations to do. We had family stuff going on.
And early vote started, but
and many people early vote. And so, you know, we saw on the ground that by that time most people have made their decisions already. And
it was after the district hosted biggest forum that happened.
That's right. So it was very interesting. So the correspondence I had was very short. It was, you know, there were a lot of things going on that I tried to make them aware of, so they would have the understanding and kind of compassion. But what was happening is there was a death in David Kirshner's family, and he was likely to be out of state. You and I had things going on, which I don't need to share necessarily on the forum, and it just wasn't going to work out with such close proximity. And we also got insight into things being stacked to try again to make us look as bad as possible. But I didn't bring that up. I tried to give the benefit of the doubt, and the response I got was, well, a lot of people have expressed that the League of Women Voters is doing a bad job or not satisfying the questions. And I was actually very surprised with that because, first of all, I have a whole story about the League of Women Voters, but if anything, they are very favorable, I would say, to having questions from the community come in. And also, I have been answering every single question that came to me, and I even tried to make a Q&A section where I answer every question. And I know David Kirshner has been doing that with a lot of grace, probably
Right.
more than anyone I ever knew. And so, after 3 years and attending many PTG forums, the narrative that those same individuals went out and said was, David refused to meet with parents. David doesn't want to engage with parents.
Yeah, and I think after you already responded that you and David Krishna could not attend the date that they suggested, they went ahead and created the invitation for the community and spread out through the principal e-notes and stating there that David and David refused to attend the event.
Oh, yeah. And they had the whole political show of having a table, like as if we didn't show up, and we showed this contempt and disrespect.
Right.
And I think that just shows the dishonesty and how we're being presented. And look, it's no secret that those individuals are part of the progressive group.
And they are also the employee of the school district.
Well, that's the other thing. So there's a good faith portion here. And, through some of the sunshine requests that we made, we saw direct communication between the PTGs and the school district, instructing them what to put on these invitations and stuff like that. And so, again, it just shows a lack of good faith.
Right.
And I would advise, because of that experience, any independent who's not part of the progressive group not to trust at least that individual, because she has proved that she's not been acting in good faith. And again, the whole flaunting of the employee side of things, and the school district not pulling back at all or getting involved.
Right.
And this brings me back to ethics, because in any publicly traded company and SOX compliance, as employees, there are times where we are not allowed to talk about what's happening internally or leverage any information to our advantage or others.
Right.
And in this case, it's very similar, but somehow there's a wink and a nod, and it seems like they're just getting away with it.
Right.
And that's what's too bad.
Speaking of employees acting against you very vocally over social media, we had an incident about the AG information, right?
Yeah, well, we can talk a little bit about the whole situation with the AG, Attorney General, at a maybe different time, but specifically the AG who wrote the email. It was very interesting, because Representative Brad Christ, had given the district a heads up out of courtesy. Hey, this looks like this is going to happen. You're going to get a letter of cease and desist. And so, my understanding is they wanted to know who wrote it, right? And I was asked, actually, by Representative Brad Christ, hey, is it okay if I release it? And I said, well, it's sunshineable anyway. And I've gone through communication channels trying to work with them on this, and there was complete rejection.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't mind. I don't have anything to hide. Well, but this was still,
I think even in December, before you put your name on the ballot.
it was before I even ran. And then it was kept for the opportune time. And the information was leaked. We have a pretty good understanding of who likely did that. And it was given through the progressive group to an individual not connected to the school district directly. Not as an employee, at least.
Yeah, but I think they are family of the district, correct?
Oh, well, yeah.
Yeah.
And she knew exactly what to sunshine in order to get that specific information. It was already calling me out by name and everything else. And, we can expand on that more to reveal but I think for now, for the purpose of this discussion, we can just show there was, again, at the time, we were still partially in the school district, not enrolled, but we had our child attending functions in the school. And, so I'm still a parent in the school district.
Right.
My name is being leaked by the district in order to use it politically against me.
Right.
As a political candidate. So it was used specifically to bash. And here's the proof. That information was then taken to every single platform of social media, press, everywhere you could think of.
And with the wrong narrative.
Exactly. The narrative that was brought was David refused to talk to the school district. And which I would ask, well, how can you know that as a private citizen, right?
Right.
But going back to the narrative, David refused to talk to the school district and is using this to sort of bash. And David and the AG are buddies, and they just planned this whole thing out of the blue.
Representative didn't agree with you, right?
Oh, that's the other thing that, they tried to sort of paint it like, and there's such a feud now between Representative Brad Criss and David. They're not even talking now. And there was this whole, I don't even know where that came from. but it just, the whole thing was to try to put a wedge, isolate, and it was based on lies.
Right.
And so, again, that's
what coming from the employees again.
This is all the employees, that they have a serious, in my opinion, a corruption problem. Serious leaking of information.
Right.
And there are no attempts to reel it in. I understand that sometimes things happen, but this wasn't, done with any kind of work with me, or a heads up that, these things are happening. So this just, again, goes back to lack of good faith that I see. And I do want to say one thing, again, I know we've said this, but when you and I first started, the school district could do no wrong. And as we pushed harder, we also discovered more and more unethical actions that seem to be coming from the administration itself.
Yeah, the decision makers. And I think it's a very sad thing, because over 12 years of our children in the district, we met so many wonderful employees in the district, right? They brought our children from not speaking the language at all to more than proficient, flourishing in music, and having great friends, and being cared for by wonderful teachers. Yet we've seen the union president, or the closer position to that person, or the administration, and some employees that they feel very comfortable being vocal, and they are the ones making these elections very, very unfavorable for the independent, you were.
Well, we've seen numerous examples of Lindbergh Schools employees perpetuating, and I'm going to share these links, but perpetuating these narratives from the website that they are connected to, which is Know Your Lindbergh Schools Candidate, which oddly enough disappeared as soon as we started closing in on them. But it's showing a false information and propaganda, and it's also very interesting because even board members are involved in some of this dishonesty.
Right.
So there was I want to share also so the community knows. There was a situation at the League of Women Voters. Two things that happened. The first is I arrived a little bit early. And, I think it took me time to process this because I was so shocked to see this. But I walked into the conference room adjacent to that main hall where the forum was conducted. And I saw there my two opponents quickly jotting down from a paper what looked to be questions. And I saw it, this rarely happens to me, but when you see something that's so shocking, you take a step back and you kind of just have to digest it.
Right.
But at the moment, you're not even sure how to respond to it.
Right.
I was really shocked. But I realized that they were given the questions. And I think it's evident later on when you watch the forum, many of their answers are being read off a paper. They knew what to answer, and the questions were also very much stacked. So in a very certain way.
I think I counted 13 questions, maybe a little bit more, but only one question was about academics.
Yes, it really tried to go back and did you support the prop from 5 years ago? Did you support, or do you support the current prop? It was really about, again, trying to
it was only
be
social.
favorable towards a certain set of candidates and not really bring open discussion and what you're bringing to the table. And well, during that was one thing. And the other thing that happened was traditionally we always had the Pledge of Allegiance. And
I remember the second time, the second year you ran, there was a student board of representatives that led the pledge.
Yes, they led it. Now, it wasn't part of the recording because it wasn't technically part of the forum. So that was cut out. But yes, there was. And, I think it's right anyway for public meetings to have that.
Right.
But here's the interesting thing. We have lived experiences that are ours. We came from a different country. We basically sacrificed everything to move here to the United States. I served in the Israeli Defense Forces. Because I come from the outside, and you as well, and you got your citizenship here in the U.S., we value the things in this nation, I would say, probably more than most.
And I think for me, the pledge has very emotional attachment. I remember our eldest was requested to lead the pledge when he was in 5th grade. So when he came here in 3rd grade, he was not even allowed to take map test at first year because his English was not proficient yet. But at the end of 4th grade, when he was tested, he scored proficient in both English and ELA and mathematics. Therefore, he was invited to go to the all academic star night, which was canceled later on. And he was asked to lead the pledge. And as I watched our son leading the pledge on the stage, being awarded for academic excellence, and then percussion of Lindbergh High School came in and they chanted together, "We are Lindbergh." I cried. It was such a touching moment for me. So pledge has a very important place in my heart. So I think it was very important for us as a family that you wanted to have the pledge at the beginning of the forum.
Well, yeah, and I was thinking about even beyond that, when you think about where we came from.
Yes.
And I realized we were witnesses of actual terrorist explosions. You were about 100 feet away from one of the worst ones in Jerusalem. You witnessed the explosion. You drove through the smokes a second later, and you helped actually rescue a wounded lady.
Yeah.
And we lived in the center of Jerusalem. We experienced blowing up of terrorists all the time who were trying to hurt the civilians. And so putting all that into the context, moving here was such an incredible opportunity for us to move to a peaceful thing. So, then And there were board members who refused to stand for the pledge. And here's the thing. I respect everyone's right to make their decision. I never got involved with any of that. But this board member, Andrew Lawson, was questioned publicly about it. And again, we're in election season. And he asserts his projection and lens, which again, I think it goes against the ethics of conduct of a board member. But here's what he says. I didn't stand for the pledge. I saw David's power play for the political theater it was, and as a veteran was disgusted that someone would use the pledge in that way. You gonna tell me I'm not a patriot? 10 years active duty army with 4 years worth of combat tours in Iraq, Afghanistan, not enough for you? What have you done to serve this country? Well, I think that kind of, first of all, I respect his service for sure, and that goes without question. But what kind of response is that of a board member?
Right.
No one was questioning his service. It was just questioning, well, why
you didn't
stand?
Up. Right.
And for him to assert with authority that he knows best what my motivations and what my heart was, and decided it was a theater, when actually what he did was theater.
Of course.
And it's no secret that many board members don't pledge. Because they believe our country is systemically racist.
Right.
So, again, this is just another example of the way representatives of the school district are showing their colors. And I think that's very sad.
Yeah, because this is not a private institution. It's a public institution, and the school district is run by tax money, and the school district should not interfere with the citizens' opinion about their board members, right? Yet they are very comfortable having their employees speaking against certain candidates like you, and the elected board members who are supposedly, there was a policy that you pulled up for the other chapter, that they're supposed to show respect to anyone in this district, right?
That's right.
But he decided that if it was you who are leading the pledge, then the pledge is not worthy to stand up. I mean, that's
it's
very
because
sad.
it's more about, well, it's projection, right? But it's more about because it's me.
Right.
We have to remember, this is a school district that has a budget of $125 million, an army of lawyers, a PR.
Right.
They constantly are publishing successes and stuff like that. So it's just, I think it's sad to see, and I'll leave it to the community to decide whether or not, again, this is how individuals should be treated. Whether we agree with each other or not, especially if you're a serving board member, I think it's important that you respect your fellow community member, especially as you're in a position of a servant.
Right.
You're a public servant. That needs to be taken into consideration as well. The last thing that I'll point out, which is also interesting, is the communication that I observed through Sunshine Request of how the school district has communication with the press.
Right.
So it looks like there's a practice where local newspapers actually share those articles or directions with the school board for sort of review before approval.
Wow.
And so I thought that was interesting, and I'm just raising this as a question. Does that hurt objective journalism? because the job of our press is to share factual news and bring accountability through the press, and not be just a mouthpiece.
I agree, and I have to say that I was never interviewed about my concerns about books by the Call, but the Call already had their own opinions from that for us and call us out in the public. I don't think it was the fair journalism done for us parents, the parents that who were very concerned about the content. I know that when I try to report the certain activities with the Call and recommended to have them published, it never got published, and I realized that there are only certain articles that can be published by the Call when it comes to the public school about the Lindbergh Schools, because I had published maybe 2 or 3 articles through the Call when I worked for the orchestra programs fundraisers, and they were very cooperative, and I was surprised that when I came with a negative information, which the community should have been informed, then suddenly it was a quiet silence.
Right. The one thing that they're supposed to help with
Right.
is when they, yeah. Well, and so again, just raising it as a interesting finding and allow the community to make the decision on it. Well, I think that sort of brings to closure some examples of the lack of neutrality we've seen with the school. And again, we're bringing our own experience, our opinions, subjective opinions, but based on actual things that have happened. And we want to share this with the community so they understand what's really happening, and the conduct of some of our board members and administrators and district employees, and let the community make a decision about it. And with all that being said, I think it's important to say the reason we're bringing this is because we feel projecting a mirror and a light to the school district will help fix it.
Right.
If the community realizes what's happening and they start pushing, then the school district will have to listen and make some course corrections.
Right.
And that's the goal.
Right.
Right. And,
I agree.
And otherwise, why even bother?
Right. I mean, our daughter made to her mother, her one of the sentence to repeat to herself, how many you can grow is depending on how much truth you're able to accept about yourself. And I think that's what we have been trying to do with the school district and also the community members. This is the truth that we have been experiencing. We're not making up stuff. Some might be easy to prove, some might not, but these are our experiences. This is our testimonies, and now we can try to work together or not.
Right.
Right.
Exactly. Yes. So, trying to close up on a more positive note, we do hope and encourage our school district to consider these things. We encourage the community to engage and ask the school district about these matters. We encourage to be more evenly handed in political matters and have more policy around what employees can or cannot do.
Right.
And I'll say this. I heard this one argument where, because I asked the school district about it, I was told, well, it's their First Amendment right. Well, here's the thing. Even in a publicly traded company, I don't lose my First Amendment right to say what I want. I can say certain things. I can say whatever I want. But there are consequences.
Right.
I may lose my job if I say certain things that are harmful.
Right.
And so that's the response I have. No one's losing their First Amendment right, but there are certain things that ought to be conducted with ethically when it comes to a free and secure election.
I agree.
All right, well, thank you, and we'll see you on the next chapter.